This is Matt Martin, and we have both Dave King and Eddie McBride on the line right now. And Eddie, I'm here crying big old giant tears. Are you there, Eddie?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Well, I'm crying big old giant tears because this weekend was the weekend that we were supposed to have the Lubbock Uncorked, and it is not happening.
Matt, I wasn't prepared for that. I completely forgot about that coming off on Saturday. You're absolutely right.
I don't forget about those things. And you sent me a couple tickets, and I don't know if you knew this. Nobody cares, but I was just going to tell you that I got ticket number 1 and 2, and I thought I was very special for that reason. But
well, y'all do a good job of promoting it on the station and everything, and we appreciate that. But sorry, we're not going to be doing that this Saturday, but we have rescheduled it.
Well, Eddie, good morning, sir.
Hello, Dave. How are you?
Well, I'm good. Now, I know that Matt, if you're not going to do that, he'll want a cash refund on those tickets.
We'll make that happen. He'll be crying some more alligator tears, I guarantee
I'll tell you. Eddie, you and I talked at length yesterday, and I've been looking forward to having you on the show this morning, and we wanted to keep you over for an entire hour. This is your regular day to appear on your monthly appearances on KFYO mornings. But, man, I was thinking, I am so concerned about the Lubbock businesses, and Eddie, I have not seen ever, I don't believe, the widespread anger out there, particularly from those business owners and others being closed down. Now, this is something that we need to talk about, and it's something I believe that you will have a unique insight on. I mean, if there is someone who is Mr. Business in Lubbock, it's you. You have your finger on that pulse. So let's get on it, man. First off, tell us what about Lubbock unemployment? Well,
I'll answer that, but let me tell you first, I think it's worth pausing, and you two guys will appreciate this, I'm sure. I think it's worth pausing to thank all of those folks who never stopped working and risking their personal health to keep everybody else safer.
Absolutely.
Folks. And as we proceed, we got to remember how much we got to remember them no matter what else going forward. Then, obviously, the gratitude that we have for those businesses and residents, not only for those sacrifices, but also my heart aches so much for all the small businesses we've talked to and heard back from and have either shut their doors or had to reduce staff and stuff of that nature. So just remember, we got to really appreciate and have gratitude for the folks that we've gotten this far with. But March figures were rather steep, 7,868 claims filed for unemployment, and that added to the 4,000 through April. And that was through March, January, February, March, and then with the March. So that's through March is almost 12,000 total unemployed folks that have filed claims in Lubbock, and that's 9% of our labor. So we essentially tripled the percentage-wise of number of unemployed in the city of Lubbock County over that short period of time in March. So that gives you an idea of how bad this actually is.
Yeah, and Eddie, that's pretty close to the same, I guess, figures nationwide as far as percentage-wise.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be much when you aggregate the entire amount. There's some places that might not have had as much. Some have very little, but there's some that are even larger than that. Yes, sir. So that's pretty good an average national and statewide as well.
Yeah.
Well, Eddie, of course, the burning question is, when are we going to reopen? Now, it seems like, and I scanned around this morning on all the cable news networks, all they're talking about is the fact that Trump said that he had authority to open or not. And this is all they're wanting to talk about. I don't know whether he does or not. Somebody does, whether it's the governor or Trump or whatever. The question is, should we get this country back to work?
Well, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, we have to get back, and because American families right now, we're striving for that delicate balance of being safe and still making ends meet. You know, it's pretty difficult. So right now, what you see happening is the planning the beginning planning, which I think is very appropriate, not only at the national level but the state level, and in Lubbock as well, because you got to start planning on how, because you just don't turn the green light on. I've heard a lot of, just like y'all have talked about here on the station as well, about all the folks who are clamoring to open up immediately, and it ain't going to happen immediately. Returning to work has to be gradual. It's going to be phased in. It's going to depend on a lot of developments, and you can't just turn the switch. You can't go from you got to go from red to yellow to green. So folks have got to understand that this is not going to be an immediate return to work, and all those supporting industries around going back to work as well.
Well,
yes.
And of course, Eddie, I don't need to go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was just going to say that right now, especially like restaurants and stuff like that, I mean, you may not see them. If they're able to open, they may open at a smaller amount of people coming in. And so something like that, you may not see all of the waiters and cooks and stuff be able to get back to work at one time. And so, I mean, I think that this is going to hurt places like that a lot. Now, one thing that I was talking about before the break was that I think our small businesses could probably be just as responsible, if not more responsible, than places like United Supermarkets, Walmart, who've started one-way aisles. They've allowed only a certain amount of people in their store, and I really think that we could do that with our small businesses.
Well, especially if the public health folks are going to, I say, recommend, it could be one of these requirements by which they have to follow, because there's a lot of rules that go along with that, and the very first and most important thing before we ever even get open is we've got to and make sure that more testing is available, because that is obviously to control this infection. We got to test and find out those people who are needing to be isolated. So obviously you don't go in the workplace and you don't make your fellow employees or make customers sick. You got to make sure that testing is done.
Yeah. All right. Well, I apologize, but we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have the cash code word of the day. All right. Well, Eddie, let's go back to you real quick. And you were talking about small businesses and kind of like you said, it's going to be a process. It was a process closing down. It's a process opening back up. Do you have any idea what that process might look like?
Well, besides being measured and everything, yeah, there's some things that is going to have to occur. And one of the first ones, if you can imagine the child care situation we have now, if we're going to expect everybody to get back to work, and child care is going to have to receive a lot of attention to make sure that obviously that's going to be made available, because that's going to be a difficult task in and of itself. And of course, food service is going to continue to be essential. I think you're going to see all your businesses staying open, and this is just by no means this is the way it's going to happen. I'm just saying what I suggest. And food service, both whether it be the grocery stores and distribution centers making food available, as well as even the restaurants that you said, and I think all in all, it's going to be, you're going to have to employ social distancing, but you got to remember besides that testing and general health screening, probably it's going to be recommended that some sort of mask and PPE in general is worn both by employees as well as customers, because the whole intent of this gradual reopening is to keep that infection from getting spread, because there's a worry about a second surge in this. So you want to make sure that everything is done reopening these facilities and or expanding what restaurants are doing, making sure that they know how much that is protected. But there's got to be certain numbers in certain places, and those are going to have to be worked out. I don't know if anybody knows precisely what those numbers like. Is it half of the restaurant with 6 feet distance between each table? I mean, with each chair and things of that nature, and beyond that, what's going to be considered the next step. So there has to be a lot of planning that goes into this. I'm sure you can see what I'm talking about there.
So, Eddie, do we have any idea of how this has affected Lubbock? I mean, I know that you talked about unemployment, but we've also had, I know that the Shack Barbecue has decided to stop doing food, at least for now. And we've also had, I know that the national chain Logan's Restaurants seems to be closing all of their stores potentially forever. Is there other businesses that you've heard of that are looking at closing down or don't think that they can make it through this?
Quite a few, Matt, and we're compiling as much of a list as we can. We don't hear from a lot of folks, so we did a survey, and that survey says that essentially the clear majority of the folks who are open for business. We have probably close to 10% of those who responded to us said that they have closed, but we don't have a good handle on that yet, although we're trying to collect as much information about that as possible. But what more so than anything else, 75% of them have reported a decrease, as you can imagine, a decrease in their revenue. But what I still hear more than anything else from our survey is that the number one concern that our employers have is that obviously what they can do for their employees and their families. So that is obviously still very important to us West Texans is trying to take care of our employees. So I think that's important.
Well, Eddie, there's one of the things that you and I talked about yesterday is what if they were to open businesses back up tomorrow. There's a lot of people that's going to avoid crowds, like restaurants. And I'm probably one of those because I would be so severely impacted by getting this just because I fall into that category. But I think there'd be a lot of people who would avoid things like restaurants and maybe sporting events. We were asking Dr. Stubenik last week when he was on about is it going to cut down on the number of people that go to football games and basketball games? And I think the answer is yeah, it is. So we, at one time, Eddie, I heard that Lubbock had more restaurants per capita than any city in America. I don't know how true that was, but we do have an awful lot of restaurants. We're restaurant heavy. And it seems like that is probably one business that's going to be impacted the most. What do you thoughts on that?
Yeah,
can this many restaurants continue to survive?
Well, and like you also heard me say yesterday, is that while there's a group of folks who probably aren't going to be rushing out anytime soon because of both their safe distancing that they want to continue, as well as obviously they might have some issues like what you're talking about. But there's still another group of folks who probably will relish the idea of going back in and eating at a restaurant in some of these facilities. So I think all in all, what the biggest question I have going forward is what are going to be the numbers? How are they going to calculate that? And the restaurants have done a great job, and we've done a good job of promoting them. There's a lot of people throughout town that are promoting, obviously, curbside and takeout right now. And I think a lot of restaurants have changed their model. Those folks who never even did curbside or takeout before are probably going to continue curbside and takeout. And I think that's going to be the new normal going forward, is that nothing's going to be exactly the way that it used to be. There's going to be a lot of changes in the way we do, not just restaurants, small business in general. So I think all in all, there's probably going to be a mix, Dave. I think that there will be folks that go out, and so we'll have to know how many of those numbers are to be able to let them. But let me just make sure you're clear on my opinion. Everything is not going to open up immediately. It's just it cannot happen. It will not happen. And so I think there's going to be, again, a gradual phase in, and that's what the folks need to determine how to do that.
All right. Well, Eddie, we'll be right back. You're going to stay over a couple more segments, so we thank you for that. And so be prepared. We'll have Eddie McBride on the other side, President and CEO of the Lubbock Chamber of Commerce. And we'll be right back after this. This is News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM KFYO. I'm Matt Martin. We've got Dave King as well as Eddie McBride, the CEO President and CEO of the Lubbock Chamber of Commerce. Eddie, I do have one question. I don't know if you have the information or not. I'm assuming that you've at least got some information on it, but could you explain the stimulus bill and how that's helping small businesses in Lubbock?
Absolutely. It's interesting that we heard of the amounts yesterday. It's amazing. 2/3 of it have already been expended of the 350
Yeah, it went out
million.
fast, didn't it?
Yeah, and you can imagine that was 100 and some odd thousand applications that have already been approved, and I'm telling you that's that's probably not even half of what the application. I'm sure there's probably 4 times as many applications that have been submitted as opposed to what's actually been approved. And what's good about that is that means under the and this is the phase 3 PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, and it's something that is intended to keep people from laying off their employees, because for an 8-week period of time, if you keep all of your employees hired, you can actually get that loan turned into a forgiven grant. So, but you got to keep your people on the payroll. And so that's being looked at right now. That's the phase 3. That's part of the CARES Act, and the banks here have just been outstanding to work with. I've heard it from so many different people. I've heard it from bankers. I've heard it from people who've applied, that the banks just really bent over backwards and just worked to get all this accomplished. So compliments to the banks for making some of this available to the businesses that were able to take advantage of it. But I will remind your audience that that initial tranche of money was only going to cover 48%, at best, 48% of all the employees in America with businesses less than 500 people. So it never intended. I don't know what the initial intent was, if it was just to cover half, but at least they realized they're going to run out of money. So they're as soon as Congress gets back in session, they're going to work to extend the phase 3 funding and add a certain amount of money. Their original request was going to be $250 billion. And now there's opportunities to talk about changing both the amount as well as even adding a couple of other areas, like for hospitals and that. But the PPP was actually the second loan program that was made available. The first loan program that was made available was the Economic Injury Disaster Loans that was in phase 2 in the Families First Act. And there's a lot of folks in our survey. We found that not a whole lot of people have actually been applying for that particular loan program. It was going to be a 3 3/4% interest based on how much you actually were able to borrow over a 30-year period. And so that was a little. I'm a little bit more surprised that more folks didn't try to take availability of that, but that's not working too well. They ran out of money early. That was the one that every business that applied that got accepted was going to get a $10,000 grant that was not going to have to be paid back above and beyond what they actually negotiated for their loan. And we found out last Thursday that the loans have now been capped at $15,000. So even if you ask for $2 million, right now the most that you're going to be able to see is $15,000. So the SBA got overloaded, both with applications more than they thought, as well as nationally. Locally, we didn't have as many people apply, but I think nationally a lot of people applied.
So this.
Eddie, let me get a question in. Have you heard anything about people that can't make their mortgage payment being able to move that mortgage payment to the end of the loan?
There is a whole set of rules that have been made available for that. I even heard from my mortgage company that there's going to be a deferral period. Now, one of the things I got to remind everybody is when we first heard the local utilities were allowing deferment of whether it be their electric bill or the gas bill and things of that nature, that I really was happy with the people that were allowing folks to defer their payments. Deferring does not mean forgiving. There was a lot of initial responses from people that I know that saying that a lot of people are thinking maybe that they were getting free utility payments, and a lot of folks were also talking about maybe they don't have to pay their mortgage bills if they're going to defer them. No matter what the defer, your mortgage company is going to be telling you exactly what by law that you're allowed to defer. So there's no carte blanche. There's been some federal guidance that's been given out specifically, but the best thing, just like talking to your banks about your loans, it's just the same with the mortgages. Talk to your mortgage company. Don't rely on what you hear somebody tell you in public. You got to call and work with them directly to know.
Now, Eddie, one thing I want to put out there is, number one is you're going to owe the money one way or the other.
Absolutely.
But the other thing that I want to make sure people know, I mean, I've worked with some of the mortgage companies in the past, and I can tell you that they do not want to foreclose on somebody. They will bend over backwards to do what they can to make sure that you stay in your house and that you're able to pay your mortgage, because it's only hurts you and them both if they have to foreclose. So call your bank and work with them. Don't just leave or walk away or anything like that. Know that they're willing to probably work with you.
Absolutely. And that's what's so important is it's in working from home. A lot of people have to work from home. We have a lot of frontline troops that are still out there working as well. But one of the things that I found is go straight to the source to ask the question. For example, I had a question about the SBA loan that the Chamber filed. So not only did we put on a webinar and have our great regional SBA folks, Calvin, Matt, and Jennifer do a great job of explaining to people, but then when I had a question later, I called them directly to ask about some issues. So it's best to hear from the folks who are putting on the programs. And sure, it's just like I feel so sorry for the people who are waiting on the telephone for hours to get their unemployment questions worked out. Texas Workforce Commission has now expanded a lot. They've added so many more people and trying to be more organized about the hours. It's really, it's a track cliche, but it's so still pertinent that we're in unprecedented times. There is nobody in Lubbock, nobody in the United States that has ever been through situations to this degree before. This is a wartime footing, but the biggest difference is you can't see the enemy in this respect. So this is so different. So all of the regulations and everything else that have been put into place, everything that's been trying to help people, this is the first time that we've ever done anything like this. So, we started off the whole conversation today with Dave talking about how many people are unhappy, and there's no middle of the road when it comes to this. I just hope that everybody has patience and understand that our leaders are doing the best job that they physically can to help make things happen.
All right, Eddie, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, let's go over what the Chamber of Commerce has going on right now. This is News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM KFYO. We've got Dave King and Eddie McBride. Eddie, again, I know that, even in our news, we're announcing some webinars that you're doing and whatnot. What is the Chamber of Commerce doing right now just to inform the public and also just kind of keep moving?
Well, number one is we're making information resources available, Matt. One of the things that I think that we have done best through this period of time is collect and analyze data and make it available on our website. We're talking to, as you can imagine, hundreds. The staff is calling folks. We're talking to hundreds of people a day and trying to get as much information to help people in their business and with their employees and with the funds that are being made available. So our website at lubbock.youtube.com or our COVID-19 resources page is a huge tool for folks to be able to learn about the entire scope of everything that is available for their business. And therefore, the staff has also gotten smart on what's on those pages. So when people call us or we call them, we can either point them in the right direction or give them information. So as far as one thing that the Chamber has done, I think that's very valuable for our community is provide boatloads of information to try to make sure people are aware of what's available to them,
So
not just on our website, but also social media.
So,
and now through Zoom, we have been Zooming to beat the band. I mean, we've had Senator Cornyn, we'll have Senator Cruz. We've talked about all the requirements for social distancing. We've talked about what it's going to take to keep your business-to-business opportunities going. That's what we're having this afternoon as well. Like what y'all have been advertising is the fact that 10 o'clock this morning we're actually keeping what's going on regularly. Like one of the lawyers who appeal on Obamacare is actually doing a seminar this morning, a webinar at 10 o'clock to talk about what the status of the ACA is. So we're trying to do both recovery opportunities and what you're supposed to be doing right now, as well as is still advocating on behalf of our business members as well. So I think what we're doing is what people would expect the Chamber to do, is to make business information available for business people. So I think we've been doing a good job at working awfully hard, even at a distance. We, too, are all working from our homes, but we found it to be, it hasn't slowed us down one bit. I still think we're doing a pretty good job in that respect.
Okay.
Hey, Eddie.
Okay.
Let me ask you this: if there's business people out there that are just they don't know who to call, they don't know, they're wanting answers. Is it would it be okay for them to call down to the Chamber and talk to someone?
Absolutely. 77617,000 is the general office telephone, and my telephone number, besides the office phone 7617000. My telephone number that still forwards to my cell phone is 761-7007 is my, and if people call the office phone, but my cell phone that I'm using now is 441-8966. And believe me, we've been talking to a lot of people, and that cell phone number again is 441-8966. And believe me, we've heard some tearful testimonies. You know, sometimes by the end of the day we get kind of depressed. But we also hear a lot of great stories out there. There's a lot of really neat, creative changes that people have made to their business models.
Yeah.
Now, Eddie,
we have this follow-up here, Matt. A texter says, "Did I hear you right saying the maximum SBA loan will be $15,000?" No,
that's what it is capped at previously. That is absolutely correct. That happened last week, and it's a temporary measure. They're having to. And again, they never did think that they were going to have to provide as much resources as they're doing. So they're going back to expand the amount of money that is in that loan program. It's called the EIDL, the EIDL, and so they're going back to they're trying to recalibrate and put more money in it so they can make, like if you put it, I heard a guy down in Houston, he requested $50,000 and they gave him $8,300. But they also said that we are replenishing this. We will finish your loan as soon as we get more money in this EIDL program. So we hope that the cap is going to be removed very quickly. And it might. I haven't heard anything yesterday at all about it. But usually they put out the reports, but I haven't heard.
All right. We got to take one more quick break, and then we'll come back. We'll have a few minutes left just for to close out. We'll take that quick break right now. Okay, we're going to go straight to the phones. Eddie, like I said, we have about 2 minutes. Is there anything that any information you want to make sure we get out that we missed?
Again, the best place to go, I think, is lubbock.youtube.com, and our information and resources page. There's just a vast amount of information available, and we're getting ready to have another effort where we're trying to connect job seekers to job providers. We'll be announcing that over the next couple of days, where if folks are looking for a job, we're trying to create a portal for our community so folks can go to one place and see all of the variety of resources available, but in one location. So we just wish everybody the best in this very difficult time, and please know that we're fighting on behalf of your business.
Yeah. Now, Eddie, one thing, just in the last minute we have left, I'm trying to stay positive. One of the things that I've heard, like from Mark Cuban and some other guys, is that this is not only a time for closing. Maybe some businesses might be closing, but this could be a huge opportunity for those who are wanting to open a business. Once all this kind of levels out, there may be a lot of needs that you can meet.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I've seen it characterized in one respect is that when the beginning of this is about to begin, and everyone is going to be an entrepreneur. So every business has the opportunity to both recreate their own business as well as other businesses are going to spin off to fill in some areas that we exposed that were necessary during this time frame. So I agree completely with Mark Cuban in both respects. Is that there's going to be a lot of information available for people to create new businesses. So I think it's going to be a great time.
We got to run, but I do want to predict that you're going to be a very busy man. The Lubbock Chamber is going to be very, very busy over the months to come, and I suspect you're going to play a big part in getting this up and going again.
Dave, thank you very much. We look forward to it. Appreciate you guys having me on.
All right. Thanks, Eddie. We'll be right back after a check of news and weather.